Hey, what? Oh, hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Hopefully, you aren't having an issue or anything like that hearing this. You shouldn't be, but just want to make sure. Excuse me 1 second. All right, well, that should be good there. So anyway, happy Sunday, everybody. Speaking of Sunday, we have chapter 12 of our book here. We've gone through. If you haven't already, we got the other chapter discussions and thoughts shown in, or you can check them out in our on the page. But I want to go ahead and show. Let me actually make this a little bit bigger. So first up, perfect. Look how good that looks, you guys. Today's going to be a good day. Yeah, we still got the Sunday service backdrop from earlier. You can check out the Bible reading. We have Genesis. We're going to be going through the Old Testament. We're going to be reading the first 5 books of the Bible. But that's another story. But yeah, that we're reading verbatim, and we can discuss that in the comment section of either those videos or this video. If for some reason you want to talk about it in this comment section, if you have any questions about it. But without further ado, the lady who needs no introduction. She is a very, very hip lady. Um, she's the Zen teacher, Maureen Stewart. And if you don't know, well, now you know. And I try and show you guys the page I'm looking at. A couple other things real quick. It is a Harry Potter. I got a Harry Potter bookmark, and it's also relevant, as I say in every video. This book is Tom Riddled, so we're really just going through and reading the highlighted parts. We're not going to really be reading the things verbatim, but I like to show you, like right here, like in case you need to pause it and you want to actually read it for yourself, you can do so. All right, let's go and get started. Taking it home, chapter 12. Dogen Jinji said, "To study Buddhism is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to perceive oneself in all beings and all things." I'm going to read that again. Dogen Zenji said, "To study Buddhism is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. And to forget the self is to perceive oneself in all beings and all things." That line slaps right there. I kind of find myself these days like, it's I guess the easiest and shortest way of describing this would just be main character energy, where you kind of feel like you're the main character for whatever reason in your own life. And if you've never felt like that, the best way to describe it, or I can give an example, like I'm reading the book Dune right now, and I've mentioned this in other videos, but I'm reading the book Dune, and in the book Dune, Paul, if you've never read it, I recommend reading it. I can't recommend that enough. But Paul Atreides, the son of the Duke Leto, um, basically the father ends up not being able to be, I don't want to spoil anything, but anyway, the son carries forth the father's work, right? So the father ends up not being around to see his son do these things that he wanted to do himself, but in a way, it's kind of like about legacy. And so it's related to this, to see yourself in everything else around you. I see myself in Paul Atreides because I'm carrying the work of my father forward. And I know what you're thinking. Well, Ethan, you're not in medicine. You're making videos on the internet. How are you doing that? And that's a great point. But the point I would make is that he wanted to read Dune. So he was never able to read the book Dune just because it is very dense and it is it's kind of like Lord of the Rings level as far as just overall commitment and with how deep it is. And so he was never able to read it. I find this out. I get Dune, I read it. I have read Dune. And to me, that's carrying forth his work just like Paul does in the book itself. So to me, that's what this is. It's like to see yourself and oneself in all beings. You know, you, even though you might not be, it's like Barack Obama when he was talking about like having a when he was giving his DNC speech keynote address in 2005. At one point, he mentions to the audience about how he's like, we are a nation, like we're one nation. We look after each other. And it was a really moving speech. It's definitely what like put him on the track to win the nomination in 2008 and ultimately win the presidency in the same term or in the same cycle. But what he said was, he's like, if some grandma can't afford the medicine she needs, and that hurts me, even though she's not my grandma. And he's saying that if some kid on the south side of Chicago can't read well, that hurts me, even though that's not my child, and even though that's not my grandma. And it's kind of like the ability, I think, in Buddhism to see yourself and fold your own experiences into the much larger vision. And in Buddhism, it just means in everything. In American politics, it means into the American story. So both are relevant, and I hope that you kind of took a little bit away from those examples, at least maybe more about me, or ultimately, hopefully, you. But it is our practice that really teaches us one moment, our practice that really teaches us moment after moment. Goes on to say, right now, enter from wherever you are. It's all open, an open secret. Enter from listening to the birds, like that owl. Enter from feeling the sunlight in this room. There are any number of wonderful ways to study Zen. There are a lot of books about Zen, and some of them are helpful. Some of them are impediment. What is the most important thing you feel? How does it transform your life? How deeply are you willing to go into the roots of yourself? Goes on to say, to study Zen requires enormous patience. I would have to concur. Next, let's see here. Next highlighted area says, grieving people among us. There are always grieving people among us. Always some who are having a very difficult time. A practice has helped me enormously in difficult times, and still does, is to chant. Inwardly chanting the Heart Sutra, chanting the Canon Sutra, chanting the Namu De Bosa. When the mind becomes very unruly and loud and angry and nervous, chant. At every opportunity, chant. What is the scenery in your mind today? Namu De Busa, Namu De Busa, Namu De Busa, Namu De Busa. To unite with boundless Bodhisattva, with the ground of our being, for the sake of all beings. And listening practice. What is the noise outside? What is the sound in the house? What do we really hear? Do we resist the sound and say, this is disturbing, I can't concentrate because there is a noise or that noise? Or do we simply become one with it? To become one with chanting, one with listening, takes us out of ourselves, out of all this fussy stuff. Fussy. The endless numbers of things that get in the way. It extends our mind, it broadens our consciousness. Those are things that pretentious phrases. These are pretentious phrases. Forgive me, but you know what I mean. We become one with listening, one with chanting, and there is no thought of doing it well or not doing it well. Reminds me that statement right there. What do we really hear? Do we resist the sound and say this is disturbing? I can't concentrate because there's this noise or that noise? Or do we simply fall in love with the sound? Well, it goes on to say, or do we simply become one with it? That reminds me of the beginning of that Odessa album. If you haven't heard of Odessa, I recommend you checking them out after this video. But their album, A Moment Apart, it starts off with the story of the Russian cosmonaut, and it reminds me of that. And it's funny, I kind of relate everything. It's funny that it says, like, to perceive oneself in all things. It's kind of like this. I mean, I know I'm not Odessa, but I listen to Odessa, and I've always loved that album. But yeah, it starts off with the story of the Russian cosmonaut, and there is a cosmonaut who's traveling in space, and he, on his way into space, he starts hearing this ticking, and he can't stop it. He doesn't know where it's coming from. He doesn't know what to do, and so eventually he starts to go crazy hearing the ticking, and what's he to do? You know, he's in space, and he eventually decides that the only thing he can do is fall in love with the sound. And it reminds me of that too. It's like that owl out there. I could be upset with the owl hooting, making a noise, or I could just love the owl that it's there, and that there's an owl that is nearby, that Mother Nature has put a creature out there that I'm fortunate enough to be alive on this earth to hear, and I'm cognizant enough to know what it is, and I'm blessed enough to be able to explain that to you, the audience. So there's positive and negative in everything. It's just a matter of perspective and how you view it. So going on to the next page here. In Surmunga Sutra, the Buddha instructs us to enter sadhami, this deep, concentrated state of mind from listening. Starting with listening, being one with listening. They go on to ask their students just to listen to the sound of the gong. Every so often he stops talking and just does this. Gong is struck. When we strike this gong, we should let it sing down to its bottom like this. Takes our zazen right down if our mind is with that sound, the whole body and mind with that sound. It's the most wonderful way to enter samadhi. This part isn't highlighted, but I think it's relevant. Goes on to say, so those of you who strike the gong, take your time. Don't go. Gong is rung 3 times in quick succession. No good. It sounds like a fire alarm. Gong is rung once. One clear sound. One pure, clear sound. No thoughts about whether the sound is soft or the sound is harsh or why didn't I strike the gong better or whatever. Just do it. Just listen. Just be here with the sound. All right, last part on this page. Since you are enlightened from the beginning, the very beginning, there is nothing for me to do. And it is your life's work to wake up to the fact that you are enlightened from the beginning. Like I said yesterday, we are all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in all of us. And it's really weird to kind of think that, I guess the best way I could describe this is like, it's like I saw this written on some wall somewhere, or like in a picture of something where it was written on a wall, but it said, What if the cure to cancer is um, locked inside of the brain of someone who can't afford the education? What if the cure to cancer is locked inside the brain of someone who can't afford the education? It's something, I'm trying to think if that's the exact phrase, but what it means is that what if, these people that, like, people could have access to a lot of things, and since we're not all equal, or we're not all born equal, even though we're all created equal, we're all in the image of God, we are not, we're not, unfortunately, we're not like born with the same equal ability to, or the equal tools, the equal foundation, I guess I should say. We don't have the same foundation from person to person. So some of us are more fortunate than others. I grew up in a middle class family in America when there still was one. I'd say probably upper middle class. But and I always felt very fortunate. I still do, and I wouldn't change anything for the world. But I also know that a lot of people aren't as fortunate as I am. And I know there's a lot of people that are a lot more fortunate than I am, or I guess was and were. But still, it's something to think about. And to me, when it says you need to wake up to the light that you are in fact enlightened from the beginning, to me, I'm like, yeah, you're born special, and it's kind of like society beats you in a weird way until you kind of like are no longer like this special shining kind of person. It's like you kind of get beaten into like a conformity, and that's because of fear of failure, because of the way classes are taught, because of the way society just operates. It's just the way it is. It shouldn't be that way, but it is the way it is. That's human nature, though. Your mind and body. Got last 2 pages here of the chapter, and we'll call it a night for today. It's been a good Sunday. Appreciate you all being here. Your mind and body are one. This is your temple. Goes on down here. Flower mind is what happens. We begin opening up, discovering this beautiful, blooming mind. Heart and Hara open in full bloom, showing each of us the place where a beautiful temple is being built. Bottom of this page here. When we return home after Shishin and someone asks us what we did, it's better not to say too much. It's best to say nothing. First of all, nobody really understands what we are doing here unless they engage in it themselves. Second, if we talk too much about these wonderful experiences, it dilutes them, and pretty soon we're only left with a shadow of something that was really beautiful and deeply meaningful in our inner lives. Sometimes people are just asking out of idle curiosity. Sometimes if they continue to ask, you sense they do have feelings of some feeling of what is happening to you, but don't just throw it around. It's too precious. Enough said. In Buddhism, we speak about the two truths, relative truth and absolute truth. All words, all beliefs belong to relative truth. All things that you have read and studied and pondered may be true from a particular point of view at a certain time, but no more than that. Everything changes. Nothing lasts forever. Not even those things that we think are so true. A dogmatic attitude about these matters, about one's beliefs and opinions, it's against the true nature of things. It doesn't fit. Sitting on the cushion, we understand this. We come to understand these changes. We are experiencing these subtle changes in our attitude, in our body, and its condition, in the way we taste our food, in the way our feet feel the floor, in the way we hear everything. Everything changes. Then it goes on to say right here, highlighted, This moment is what we have, nothing else. That's it. So open up to it more and more. No intolerant and self-righteous attitudes, please. Just find out for yourselves in a calm and reasonable way what this wonderful practice is all about. Let us accept and work with whatever our present condition has brought us, and in doing this, even a hard life can become a joyful one. Sitting on the cushion, we are tuning in to the first principle of the universe, sensing what an amazing and marvelous opportunity this life as a human being is. That's beautiful there at the end. Sitting on a cushion, we are tuning into the first principle of the universe. First principle of the universe, sensing what an amazing and marvelous opportunity this life as a human being is. Taking it home. Good stuff, Maureen. Good stuff. Well, tomorrow we will have the taste of Zen. Let me try and get that just so you can see, get a little preview of what's to be expected tomorrow. Don't want to give you guys too much though. As always, I'd love to have your input down in the comment section down below. If you're on Twitch watching this on the live stream, I appreciate you being over there. If you're just watching this on YouTube or some other social media platform, I do appreciate you being here as well. So I'll give it a couple more minutes here. 3 minutes. You know, I talk a lot. And I talk a lot because I maybe want to be a talk show host one day. Kind of like right now. But when you meet me in person, I listen a lot more than I talk. It's kind of why I created this channel. And why I'm doing this to begin with. Because I wanted a place where I could constructively put my thoughts outside of like a journal. Maybe like in a digital space. And I could be a part of a community that hopefully I could be creating or helping create. And then when I'm out in person with people, I can just listen because I enjoy listening a lot. And I feel like in the past couple of years, people have become more about not listening and just wanting to talk. And so I'm trying to fix that, at least in whatever small way I have control over, which is myself. So yeah, what I'm going to do for these last 3 minutes here. Breathe. Oh. It's hard to do it upside down. 3 minutes of meditation. If that was your first time, I hope you enjoyed it. There's plenty more where that came from. Thank you once again for you all being here with me today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday night. Tell your loved ones you love them. Tell yourself you love yourself. And I will see you guys tomorrow. You guys made Maureen happy. And you guys made yourself happy too. Much love. Namaste.